I'd like to call to order the March 15th, 2016 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start by introducing a board member, starting from my left.
I'm Bill O'Connor.
Sumit Shah.
Todd Chernick.
Walt Recook.
Jim Hilly.
Kim Keller.
Prior to making a motion to adopt or amend the agenda, well, actually, I'd like to make a motion to amend tonight's agenda. Point number 4, we'll be approving the January meeting minutes.
February.
January.
There was no February.
Oh, that's right.
Second.
Well, let me try to hit them all. I'm sorry, that is all of them because we have an old copy here. So I have a motion and a second to amend tonight's meeting agenda, with point number 4 being amended to the January meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimous?
Can I amend one more thing?
Sure.
Under old business, can we discuss our email issues?
Is that an amendment?
It is.
I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend point number 7 to include addressing the email issues. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimous. I guess that we want to leave the election of officers on at this point, since no one's making an amendment. Okay.
I'll make a motion for basically delaying the election so we have all the board members. I'll make a motion to delay till next month.
I'll second that for discussion. Is there any discussion on that? I think in fairness, with Chris currently being the vice chair, we should probably wait for his presence.
Sure.
Everyone okay with that? All right, so we have a motion and a second for new business to be amended to remove the election of officers until our next scheduled meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passed unanimous. So I'll just a quick recap then of our agenda. We're approving the January meeting minutes. We're adding old business to discuss email issues, and we will not be electing officers tonight. With that said,
Mr. Chair, if you'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
oh, absolutely. I'll actually make a motion to approve as amended
I second it.
with a second. All those in favor of approving as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve as amended has passed unanimous. Moving on to item number 3 on our agenda, which is the approval of our January meeting minutes. I make a motion to approve our January meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a second. I have a motion and a second for approval of our January meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passed unanimous. Consideration of primary variances, V16-001. Well, I'm sorry, before I get there, let me read our considerations for tonight. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance, and there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good in surrounding properties, and that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. With regard to consideration of primary variances tonight, I want to make it known that the applicant and public comment has 10 minutes to make their case. That includes public comment in favor and opposed with within that 10-minute allotment. Angela, would you please present case V16-001?
Mr. Chair, actually, staff would like to request that V16-001 be withdrawn. The city architect was able to work with the applicant and tweak a few things, and we got it to where he only needed an administrative variance. So this does not have to be heard by the board.
Okay. I'll make a motion to withdraw case V16-001.
Second.
We have a second. Motion is to withdraw case V16-001 with a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passed unanimous. Angela, would you please present case V16-002?
Yes, sir. Case V16-002. The site, 13480 Hopewell Road, is a 1-acre lot containing a single-family home, zone AG1. It is located in the rural Milton overlay. The subject lot is surrounded by a 23.4-acre working farm. The applicant, Lee Bates, built a 6-foot-tall, opaque privacy fence along the frontage of Hopewell Road. The expanse of the fence is 125 feet long. The stockade-type fence runs the length of Mr. Bates' house and is open on both ends. Section 64-416J1 states that allowed fencing material along an exterior road shall be 3 or 4 board wooden fencing with wood posts. Section 2 states that fences shall not exceed 55 inches from finished grade, and Section 4 states that opaque fences are prohibited. Since Mr. Bates has built a 6-foot-tall opaque stockade fence along an exterior road, a 2-part variance is required. On March 1st, 2016, the DRB offered the following comments. How is the fence containing anything if the fence is open? How is it containing the horses today? How can it contain your horses if it doesn't have a gate? The laws for development standards in the city of Milton are pretty clear. We had another case come before us probably 3 or 4 months ago, and unfortunately he had to take it down. The laws and the development standards in the city of Milton are pretty clear. It is unfortunate that you did not get enough information from the city. You can't tell this guy that you have to take it out and then turn around and make an exception for someone else. That wouldn't be fair. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm not buying the safety of your horses whatsoever. You're doing it because you want to block the road noise. I sympathize with you. I run up and down Hopewell Road every day, and I get it. The bottom line is the city has adopted ordinances that the city has asked us to enforce. These type of fences are not meant for horse farms. They are privacy fences. And I say, why didn't you build it over by the barn? Staff held a focus meeting on March 2nd, 2016, at which the following comments were provided. Site plan review, the city architect and DOT stormwater had no comments. The city arborist stated additional plantings can be added to screen the house. The standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. We are a tax-paying, working horse farm with gross receipts. Many of our horses are very large in size and require specialized care and containment. The privacy fence not only serves the main purpose of horse containment, it also blocks out a great deal of road noise, which increases the quality of life for myself and family. It also provides us with added security from break-ins and home invasions because when my front porch lights are on, the light is reflected off the fence, thus illuminating my entire front yard. The health and safety of the public is in no way impacted or impaired by the current fence type, height, or location. Without the current fence, my family's and my horses' quality of life would be much less, and our safety and welfare could potentially be compromised. as well as the public's if a horse were to break free from their current paddocks to roam freely on the road. Staff response. The intent of the ordinance is to promote uniformity and consistency. Milton is a unique, rural, horse-friendly community. The city does not want to be a typical walled-off suburban area. We have created design standards that include fences that are appropriate for horse-friendly properties while making the most of our rural view sheds. Mr. Bates stated that he came into the city and asked if he needed a fence permit for property with an agricultural use. Staff told him no, he did not. He stated that he put up the fence without a permit because his property is an agricultural use and he needed the fence to contain his horses. In actuality, Mr. Bates' property is 1 acre cut out from a surrounding 23.4-acre horse farm. Per the Fulton County's tax assessor's website, this is a single-family residential lot. It is the surrounding 23.4 acres owned by Mr. Bates' parents that is the agricultural use. Furthermore, Mr. Bates' 1 acre is heavily vegetated with deciduous and evergreen trees. There does not appear to be adequate room for horses on this lot. The fence is nowhere near the existing horse paddocks. Also, staff has done research and spoken to several people who are experts at the raising and care of horses. Stockade fences are never used for housing and containment of horses. Horses are naturally claustrophobic, and they are known to test fences. A horse repeatedly leaning on a stockade fence could pop off the panels and cause injury to itself. Also, horse fences are designed to bend, not break. The wire in the typical horse is designed to bend under the weight of a kicking horse, as opposed to wood panels, which could splinter and break, causing injury to the horse. Although cost is not a consideration for approving a variance, staff notes that Mr. Bates stated that constructing the fence cost him almost $10,000. A popular home improvement store has a cost estimator on its website. The site estimated that a 125-foot stockade fence would cost approximately $1,499, not including tools. If Mr. Bates took down the fence, he could reuse it along the sides and rear of his home. He has stated that he plans on fencing in the rest of his property, so by reusing these materials, he would suffer no financial harm and substantial justice would be done. If Mr. Bates is concerned about light and noise pollution coming from Hopewell Road, additional plantings can be selected with the help of the city arborist. Also, he could secure his property using a standard wired horse fence and gate, as many other Milton properties have done. There are no extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. The literal or strict application of the ordinance would not create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. Granting this variance would cause a detriment to the public good by harming the aesthetics and consistency of a prominent stretch of road. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The applicant shall plant evergreens to screen the fence from Hopewell Road. The planting shall be approved by the city arborist. The fence should be stained dark brown, and the applicant shall obtain a fence permit for any other further fences on the property. Staff recommends denial of this request, and this concludes the staff presentation.
Are there any questions for staff? Yes, Walt.
First question, on fences, what difference would it make if this was an AG1 single-family home versus an AG1 10-acre farm or 20-acre farm? Is the fence requirement any different for one classification or another?
Not for AG1 properties. The only difference is if you have an agricultural use, you don't need a fence permit.
Okay, but you would still have to follow the fence guidelines.
Right, and basically for any AG1 property that fronts a major road like that, they only allow fences, the horse type.
Okay. And does anybody in your department recall speaking with this family that maybe that there was misinformation given?
I'm not exactly sure who he spoke to, but I believe it was our front desk staff.
Okay. Okay.
And they they're not necessarily aware of the details of the ordinance. They cannot answer basic questions, so they're not going to volunteer information about the ordinance.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
So, per the staff response, you said that there was this is a 1 acre single-family residential lot cut out from that horse farm. So was there an application or anything like that done with the city? Or is it still per the city, is it still underneath the agricultural AG1, even that 1 acre lot, even though the tax assessor has it taxed separately?
It's still AG1, it's just not an agriculture use, that
The
particular
one lot,
acre.
the 1 acre lot, but everything else is.
The property surrounding it is an agricultural use.
So for the 1 acre lot, did they have to get any other sort of?
He
Permit.
should have received a fence permit.
Right, no, but I'm saying, did he have to was there any other application that was made to the city to cut out that 1 acre lot?
I think it was done before we became a city.
But regardless, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, the applicant would be subject to the guidelines of our ordinance as far as fences are concerned. Only thing that would have been determined differently is whether or not he needed a permit or not.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Walt?
Second question, or third, I guess. As far as the height is allowed, if a fence perhaps is not allowed, like the style they have now, but they still want to have a higher fence, are we still considering that as an option? In other words, is one considered part of the other? In other words, is it, are there two different
Hang on,
issues?
we'll get to you.
I just want, I can't hear anything.
Oh.
I just want to stand up so I can hear.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying-
We'll take a break here and adjust the speakers.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. It's not your fault.
I don't know if I'm talking loud enough.
No, you're fine. These are very sensitive.
Testing,
Yep.
testing.
Is that better? Okay. Got it, Angela.
Angela, my question was, if we are considering the fence, it looks like there's
Well, it's a
actually
two-part variance.
a two-part variance, but it doesn't state what that maximum height is. In other words, we can look at one, and then we also have to look at the other. Is that correct? And then also, what is that height that they're asking for?
So it states on page 3, the allowed height is 55 inches, and Mr. Bates's fence is 6 feet tall.
And is the 55 inches measured from the ground to the very tallest point of the fence, or is it a fence post, or, I'm just trying to get an idea, is it the,
It's from
if it's-
grade to the top of the
Finished grade.
fence.
right, but the top, I'm thinking sometimes when you build a 4-board fence, your 4th board isn't always right at the very top of the post. You're measuring typically to the body of the board, not to the top of the post.
The board.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, were the proper notifications sent out to, are there any other neighbors surrounding within the?
I got a call from one of the neighbors, but it's not
Okay.
But yeah, all the, there was a sign up, and the paper and the letters went out.
And then last question, I guess, does the fence have to be painted black? Is that what the,
The ordinance allows dark brown or black.
and they're not asking for anything different?
That was one of the staff's
Well, that was one.
recommended
But
conditions.
they haven't painted it black or brown, so,
Not since I've seen the plans.
so they still have to fulfill that if it is allowed to stay. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, at this time, I'll open the floor for the applicant to present their application. Sure.
Hey, good evening. I'm Lee Bates, live at 13480 Hopewell Road, as you all know. First, let me start off by saying This property has been in my family since 1905. My family's been a part of Alpharetta and Milton since Alpharetta has been a city. Anywhere you see a Bates Road, Batesville Road, that's my lineage. I built this fence to contain my horses. Okay, it's not per se a containment paddock where they would stay all the time. It is an added barrier that can also be used as a containment paddock. And there is adequate room for horses to be contained if we needed them there. There was, y'all had said something about at the last meeting it's open on both ends. The reason it's open on both ends is because I've got a violation sticker on my door. My plan was to put 2 farm gates along the driveway. Do y'all have a map of the property in front of you? My plan was to put 2 farm gates, not electric, just regular aluminum farm gates, connect the other side of the privacy fence to my paddock fences on the south end of my property. Now, when I went to the city, personally, I asked the ladies at the front desk, do I need a permit to build a fence on my property? We're zoned Ag 1. We have a working horse farm. We have gross receipts. She says, no, you don't need a permit. So I hired a company to construct my fence. And it was around the $10,000 mark. I don't care what Home Depot says. That's what I paid for it. The reason I chose a privacy fence basically was to kill a few birds with one stone, if you will, to contain the horses, to eliminate some road noise. I don't know if y'all live on Hopewell or close to Hopewell, but at 2 o'clock in the morning, you hear motorcycles, hot rods, all times of the day, going by. And it didn't used to be like that when I was growing up. It was a nice, quiet community. Now we have all this noise, big trucks going by, dump trucks, garbage trucks, like I said, motorcycles, hot rods. Since I put the fence up, my quality of life in this city has improved because I'm not hearing as much road noise. She brought up another point, well, why didn't I build a privacy fence to the north where my paddocks are? Well, that wouldn't eliminate any road noise. It wouldn't do me any good. What I have to do, and I'm looking at the picture from you, thank you very much. To the north, I have a single fence. And because my neighbor to the north doesn't have any fences to contain his horses, I have to build a cross fence 8 feet from my perimeter fence to prevent his horses from, for lack of a better term, molesting my horses. His horses have gotten out. I've rescued him off Hopewell Road 3 times in this many years. There is no ordinance in the city that states that you have to contain your horses if you own horses, which makes absolutely 0 sense to me. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on fencing to contain my horses and my customers' horses. He's got 2 horses, doesn't have a fence to contain them. He's got one little fence parallel to Hopewell Road. That's it.
Mr. Bates,
Yes, sir.
I don't want to interrupt your
Sure, go
your
ahead.
thought. As I introduced earlier, you have 10 minutes to make your whatever case. I'm going to be generous and say that you've used up half your time, so I just want to let you know where you're at time-wise.
No
okay?
problem. What was I gonna do?
And excuse me if you interrupted your thought.
Yeah, sure. That'll cost you 30 seconds.
You've got it.
The fence in my letter does not impede the spirit of the ruralness of the city, which, for one, I don't understand. But across the street from me, there's a privacy fence. My neighbor has no issue with mine. Last time I brought letters from another lady that drives by every day, says it doesn't bother her. I have spoken to multiple neighbors. They don't care. And these are all people that have lived in Alpharetta all their lives. And our customers also appreciate it. Because not only do we have trained horses, we have untrained horses. We have foals. We have yearlings. We have draft horses. And a draft horse stands about yay tall and could jump over a 55-inch fence with no problem whatsoever. So that is one reason I have to cross fence by the road and by my neighbor to the north. My other, to the south of my property, is cross-fenced. Everything is cross-fenced except for in front of my house. So I put and it's not even 6 feet tall. I can see it. I'm 5'11". I can see over most parts of it. And I should have taken a tape measure to it and measured it and taken a picture, but I failed to do that. And that's it. I'm asking for y'all to grant me this, because if I have to make any additions to it, and let me add, I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a whole lot of money. I rely on what I earn at the farm. I have to spend money on this cross fencing to the north, parallel to the road, so the horses will have another barrier before they can get to the road. The public is actually safer with my fence and my gate once it's completed. Because if a horse were to escape, like my neighbor's does, and the car hits it, officer over here could probably tell you the extent of the damage that could happen. I mean, you've seen damage that deer, when somebody hits a deer, goes through the windshield. Deer weigh 350 pounds, maybe. My horses weigh 1,500 pounds. So it actually benefits everybody. If I have to plant trees, I'll plant trees. If I have to stain it, I was going to paint it white, like my neighbor across the street. But if I have to stain it whatever color, I'll stain it whatever color. I'm not going against you guys. Had they told me in the beginning, no, you can't build a privacy fence, I would have gone a different route. And do you have anything?
You have to come up to the microphone, ma'am, and you have 1 minute.
Okay, really and truly, it's all about safety. Someone had brought up the fact,
Let us know who you are.
Kelly Bates. Someone had brought up the fact that the way that this fence doesn't contain our animals. If we would have been allowed to finish the fence, it would contain them. We have paddocks, we have 12 paddocks. If one of the horses gets out of the paddock, busts down the board, goes through the fence, we have no way to contain that horse from getting to the road. without having this fence and these gates, okay? Our customers, we built this, they had nothing but good things to say. They felt comfortable, great, my horse is now. It's behind a double fence, okay? He said before, we've chased our neighbors' horses down the road. I've chased them down the road. I've stopped traffic. It's a safety issue. For myself, he travels, I'm home alone. For our animals, for everything, it's all about a safety. Like you said, if we need to build, shrubbery in front, fine. But all we're asking is allowing to put gates up to finish the fence. So if one of our horses does get out of the paddocks that's behind our house or anywhere behind there, there is a place to stop them. We deal with the wild Mustangs, which I don't know if any of you, ladies, gents, are familiar with the wild Mustangs. These guys are wild. Someone had mentioned horses are claustrophobic. They absolutely are claustrophobic, okay? But in order to do what we're wanting to do and rescue these horses and keep them from slaughter, is you have to have a fence, a certain height, in order to do this. And that's what we're trying to do, is to rescue horses, do what we need to do. But it all comes down to safety. And that's the whole thing. The last time that really got me was it doesn't confine our horses. It's because it's not complete. If we had the gates up, we were able to connect it. Any horse on the property could get out, end up in our front yard, and it cannot get to Hopewell Road. We could actually use our front pasture if we had this fence. It wouldn't have to mow so much.
Okay, ma'am, I've been very generous with the time.
And
You'll have a chance.
I appreciate you
You'll have a chance for a rebuttal. I think I personally understand your point around
It's all
safety.
safety. It
I
really
understand
is.
that, and I think the rest of the board does. We would like to now transition to the next part of our agenda, which is to address questions to you, in which case you might be able to further clarify your case. So with that, are there any questions for the applicant? Yes.
Yes, Mr. and Ms. Bates, who did you talk to in the city and when did you do that?
I do not recall the lady's name. I could not even describe her to you. I know she's
Okay.
a female lady.
Okay. Secondly, who built your fence? Do you know who built your fence?
Yes,
Who was it?
All South.
Okay. Normally, I know I've had many fences built, and normally the fence companies are very concerned about building a fence if they know that most jurisdictions require fence permits now. And I'm surprised that they didn't go back and really check to make sure that a fence didn't have to be permitted. Have you asked them that question, whether they were aware of a permit or aware of getting a fence? I mean, this is
our guidelines.
or checking on guidelines, because that's something that's very common to most fence companies. I use 3 or 4 fence companies in my business, and that's something they're very concerned with, because they don't want to put up a fence. So,
Have you gone back to the fence company?
Yeah, and he's a friend of mine from high school.
okay.
Okay, and when I called him and told him I wanted the privacy fence built, I advised him that I did not need a permit because the city advised me that I did not need a permit.
It always going on the ag department, the ag one. Everyone told us ag one. I mean, you get into that and you look into the states a little different here, there, Milton. All the cities are different. But, again, my whole thing is it goes back to safety. A horse gets out, he gets hit, that person gets killed. You guys, like you said earlier, I don't know if y'all drive up and down Hopewell a lot, but we have moving vans. We have some of the biggest trucks. I have a friend that drives a dually that actually got her mirror knocked over by a dump truck because it crossed the line. There's so much traffic on Hopewell that we've even considered just picking up and moving, because it's just not like a,
Okay, more questions?
And
horse country anymore.
It is not
I have a
rural
question.
anymore.
He's got one.
On your location of your fence, is your fence located on the property line adjoining Hopewell Road, or is it a couple feet off? It looks like it's more than a couple feet off the road.
At the longest distance, I believe it's 80 feet and change from the center line of Hopewell. At the closest distance, it's 50 feet and change.
Okay.
57 is what you had noted in
Right,
your letter.
it said 57, I guess.
And the fence is actually on a hill. It overlooks Hopewell.
Right.
Like, it would
So-
almost save someone if they were coming down, and there's been many wrecks on Hopewell around that corner. We've had our fence taken down numerous times. That's why we have a double-built fence. Somebody knocks our fence down, going around that turn, there's another fence there to keep our horses in. But that's the thing, there's been so many wrecks, and if there was someone to wreck and hit that, it would actually probably save their lives and stop them from hitting the big trees or, running into our yard. I mean, it all goes back to just the safety issue,
And one point I would like to make really quick, that particular style of fence does contain horses. I know she talked to some horse expert, which I would love to know their name.
I would. 'Cause
She's,
I would know them, I'm sure.
she's been in the horse thing for,
I hate to tell you how old I am, but a very long time. I've been in this county, this city, working and training for over 25 years. I know everybody pretty much in town. I've seen them come, I've seen them go. But, doing, as far as horse fencing, people think it's floorboard and wire. Not necessarily. That's not gonna contain, a dog that digs under it. It's not gonna contain a horse that we school and we jump up to 5 feet. We school our horses normally 4, 6, 5 feet. You're looking at a fence that would contain one of these 1,500-pound animals. If they see something solid, they're more likely to stop, put the brakes on, and turn around and go back to the barn. A floorboard fence and wire is not gonna stop one of these animals that's running full force down the road.
Kim,
Then I have a question
And-
too.
Kim,
And I know this is totally off the whole thing, but the neighbor that does live next to us, he has no fence to contain his horses. I don't know if his horses are current on anything, so we have had to spend the money to build a double fence to try and keep his horses away from ours. They've gotten stuck in our fence. I've cut our fence to get his horses out. He actually tried to get me arrested for stepping on his property, rescuing this horse that was almost dead. She was at the point so dehydrated that if I wouldn't have found her, she would have been dead in 30 minutes. I mean, that's how bad it was. It's some of these people that don't need to own horses that do. Like I said, it all goes back to safety. The animals come first, the people come second. And if we would have known, I guarantee you this man would not have put a fence out if he wouldn't have walked in that office and they would have said, yes, you can build it. You're Ag 1, there's no specs on it, wanting to do what we're wanting to do. The round pen that we're gonna have to build behind our house is gonna be very similar to the privacy fence in the front, because that's what they ask of us to bring these wild Mustangs in. They want to make sure that they're safe.
Can I ask you a quick question? Is your whole property fenced in?
yes ma'am.
Yes,
And
the surrounding farm.
except for where we couldn't finish it. I mean, that's,
okay, so
The
your whole
surrounding farm
property
is- this
has a
subject property
privacy
is not.
fence around it?
No,
no,
ma'am.
No.
it's double, when I say double fence, I mean, like our paddocks, we've got 12 paddocks. When
But
say
I just
double-
need to know what kind of fence is all the way around your.
Our property is split, is bisected by Cooper Sandy Creek. On the other side of the creek that we don't use, it is just wire fence. The horses don't go over there,
Okay.
because it's trees, bushes. I mean, I try not to go over there. On our side of the fence, or I'm sorry, our side of the creek, it is floorboard.
A regular horse fence?
Horse fence. Some of it is horse wire and floorboard.
Okay.
It's a combination of fencing.
So you already had what Milton likes as a fence around most of your house.
Yes, ma'am.
And in this section, you chose to do differently.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what makes this part different than the other parts of your property? I mean, why did you choose to make this one different than versus matching
Well, I'll
everything?
tell you, it was actually I think I'm the one that threw the idea out there first, because in order to get approved to do what I'm wanting to do, And y'all can look it up, it's all over the computer, it's called the Extreme Mustang Makeover.
Ma'am, can you come to the microphone? This is all recorded.
They require a certain fence, a certain height, and a certain type of fence. So when they came to look at our property, it had to meet their specs in order for us to be able to adopt these and find them homes. So when he went to the office.
So, okay, sorry. So the reason you chose to do this kind of fence on, what you call this, what percentage of your property?
Pretty much the percentage, is to block the road so nothing, no matter what gets out on our property, it can go anywhere, but it cannot go onto Hopewell Road, the way that we had built this fence. It was all about where we were gonna put the gates.
And
fence,
what
it
inspired you was to rescue the Mustangs.
Well,
And that's why you built this fence
We've
differently.
rescued the Mustangs.
Okay.
We've had horses get out before.
I understand. I'm just trying to,
Yes.
okay.
We were trying to kill, like I said, two birds with one stone. We
Yeah,
wanted
but
to-
I was just wondering, most people want all their fences to match usually, so I was just wondering why you chose to
Most
make.
people in Milton now are millionaires. And, they can
Well, I don't think
afford-
any of us are, so.
Well, they,
We're volunteers.
We do what we can. I build the fences as much as I can. I'll buy the raw materials. I build the fences. Privacy fences, I wanted it to look good, so I hired somebody that knew how to build a privacy fence.
I understand that. I was just trying to understand why this part of your fence is different than the rest.
Jim,
So
you
it
have a
can be,
question?
it's all goes back to
Multiple
safety, in multiple reasons it does. We have dogs, I wanna let them out and not have to worry about them going to the road. That type of fence, a wire fence, 4-board wire fence, a little rat terrier, they're in there, they're under a fence within 10 minutes. If anybody's got one, they know, they're digging machines.
Okay, I got it.
It's just- it
Thank you.
just
I
goes
think
back
we
to-
have another question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so where are the horses in your property? I mean, it sounds like the fence
They're
goes,
kinda
like,
everywhere.
they're all over everywhere.
They're
Yeah.
everywhere.
And-
Come up there and show you.
Sure. And
No,
then
we have an
where's
aerial.
your neighbors?
There's an aerial right here.
Yeah.
We all have that aerial.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I said everywhere, you'll see.
And then I'd like to also find out, if we could stay focused here, I'd like to find out where your neighbors' horses are on that. I don't know if you could,
And the aerial
on
shot.
the aerial.
You have to be more specific when you ask about the property. There's two pieces of property.
I know. Inside the
The
fence,
subject
outside the
property
fence.
and then the farm.
Yeah.
There's a subject property, which is 1 acre, and then the
I
farm.
thought I was only asking about their property.
Well, they're answering about the farm. There is no other fencing on their subject property. There's fencing on the farm.
As he's
Right.
been,
Not
as
on-
he's drawing
not on
these
that
out,
lot.
kind of give you an idea so you can visualize. Our house sits in the front. We've got paddocks to the left of us. We've got paddocks to the right. We've got paddocks to the back of us. So the reasoning for this is if a horse all of a sudden busts through the one in the back, it's going to end up in my backyard. If I don't have anything to contain this horse in the front, it's going to end up where Hopewell Road. And I've had horses go through fences. I've had horses bust down fences. I've had horses jump fences. And like I said, that my worst fear is to have a horse hit on Hopewell. I mean, for the people too. I mean, it's I mean, what can I say? They're everywhere. It's kind of everywhere.
Can we ask some questions instead?
We'll do that after.
So all these are the things that's what I want to say.
Right.
If you show that to them. I marked the paddocks that we have.
Horses in.
What's
Okay.
that? If you point that. Oh, okay. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
No way we can see it.
Yeah. Did he circle it on the map?
There's 12 paddocks. If you notice south of the creek. Oh, sure.
All right, while they look at that, I have some unrelated questions to the specifics of the fence. When did you build the house that's on the subject property?
They're
What
not
year?
there. They're not there because that's the
2007,
Dad's gonna die, he died 9 years ago this year, and he was.
2007, 2008.
Okay, was that through the city of Milton? Did you pull permits through the city of Milton?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you're familiar with some of the processes here with the city? Okay. The subject property looks to be about 250 feet frontage to Hopewell Road, is that correct?
I've got about 1,500 feet of frontage. The entire
But
property.
just this subject property, this
Oh,
parcel,
I'm sorry, yeah. Give or take.
is about 250 feet, of which you have 125 foot of fencing.
Correct.
Is it your intent to extend the full frontage of the subject property with this privacy fence?
No,
Just the 125 feet?
just 120 feet.
And from there, you're going to gate and go back?
From there, I'm going to gate across my driveway
Yes, sir?
to the northern paddocks. The northern paddocks, I'm going to actually build a cross fence.
Understand.
The fence closest to the road.
And when you say cross fence, a four-board fence?
Yes.
Okay.
The fence that's in existence is just a top board and horse wire.
Yes, sir.
I'm coming back 8 feet, I'm going to build a horse fence
Okay.
parallel to Hopewell.
What will you do going south towards the city of Alpharetta?
Okay.
You already got two fences.
I've got it cross fenced to that first paddock to the south of that red square. There was an old driveway
Yes.
just north of that first paddock, and it has grown up. I mean, grown up, bad grown up. And I'm going to extend a 4-board fence from the privacy fence.
Maybe a little paddock.
Yeah, maybe a little paddock there. From the privacy fence to the existing fence.
Okay, and what is your frontage in total with this subject property and the adjoining farm that you have?
It's at least 1,500 feet.
Okay.
I can, if I had a, hold on a second.
Were you talking about from the house to the barn?
Samit, you had some questions?
Yeah. So, first question I had was
About 1,500 feet.
subject property, and then you've got the adjoining property. Are there two different property addresses?
There is.
There is. So when you spoke to the city, which property address did you give them
For my property,
for your question about?
For the fence?
13,480.
Which is
Mom and
the,
Dad is now 13,482.
so at the time that you spoke to the city, was it 482 and 480?
Yes, sir.
It was. Okay. But did you not know at that point that 480 was not, was an AG1 or agricultural, I guess, since it's a single family home?
Wait, do what now?
Did you know at that point when you spoke to the city that you have a single family home, not agricultural working farm property?
No, I had no idea.
Even though that there were two different property addresses, two different parcel ID numbers?
No idea.
But did you know that you had two different parcel ID numbers and two
Oh,
different
yes.
addresses? You were paying two different tax bills?
Yes.
Okay. The other question I had was about, per your, I guess, or there was a response in here, I think, where you're planning on extending the fence. So do you know how much the cost that's going to be?
The fence, let's see. If you give me just a second, I can guesstimate it.
I'm sorry, you have more questions? No, no, I'm familiar. Very.
250, 500, 1,000. Little over 1,200 feet.
How much is the cost?
Depending on materials, anywhere from $8 to $11 a square foot, or lineal foot.
And you had the gates. the gate you're gonna put up, that's gonna cost you quite a bit.
So, okay, let's just say, so 1,200 feet, you're saying, let's just say, if we use $8 times 1,200,
Sure,
approximately.
sure.
So you're looking at about $9,600.
Yeah.
And then this was 125 feet, was 10,000.
I mean, it's a very nice fence. It was very put up, you know. And the reason why it did, it just kind of stopped and looks the way it was because, you know, we hate to go out and paint it. We hate to go out and finish it when we get this letter on the door, you know, hanging there. It's like everything just kind of stopped, you know, and all the rain that we've had, and it doesn't look good because we're not able to do anything with it right now. Paint it, you know, it's the red clay's, of course, you know, we live in Georgia. There's red clay at the bottom. Our farm sign is on the outside of the fence. It's just it doesn't. If we could finish it, it would look really good, you know. It just add to it.
Do you have more questions?
Sorry, let's see what else I have. So, and that actually was a question I had. So basically, you got a notice at some point. You guys were already planning on extending it, and then you got a notice saying, "Hey."
I was in the process of painting it. Well, I was getting ready to paint it, put my gates up, and then I got the notice. So all construction stopped because I didn't want to waste any more money if y'all were going to make me tear this thing down.
I mean, I remember the day because he walked in and I thought, oh, this has been such a good day. You want the good news or the bad news first, you know? And then I handed him this orange or pink or red piece of paper, and I thought, well, there goes the day. I mean, it was just kind of like, you know, getting permission from someone, whether she had the right to do it or not. You know, somebody says, yeah, go do it.
Well, I was way off, though.
You got to think. But like I said, it just goes back to safety. We're not wanting to look
So
bad.
let me ask you
We're
another
wanting to look
Let me
good.
ask you another question. When did you start building the fence? Was it last year or?
It was
It was around the
August 27, 2015 is when I got the invoice. And it was my mistake, $2,163
To build the fence.
to build a fence.
Okay.
I don't know where I came up with it.
So
You had the labor.
okay.
that's not
So
on
you started the fence building started in around August, and
Yes.
would you say around that time is when you spoke to somebody in the city as well?
It was before that date.
I mean,
Before construction.
earlier in 2015.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, I have a question. You've now expressed that you've got roughly 1,500 foot of frontage with Hopewell Road. 1,200 foot of that which you're looking to put in four-board fencing. But because of this Mustang rescue, you are required to have 125 feet of privacy fence. That doesn't, I don't see the safety aspect argument there.
No.
When you have 1,500 feet, that's going to be standard four-board horse fence. What does 125 feet of privacy fence do with respect to safety for the horses?
It's the height that we're talking
It's the
about.
height and it's the cross fencing.
The cross fencing won't keep one in. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been, and I think y'all have been around animals. I've been run over on.
Well,
I've been plowed over
we don't need the education on that. I'm trying to understand, are you going to contain these wild Mustangs in your front yard where this 125-foot fence is?
Eventually, yes, we will. We treat them. We train these. You would be amazed if you would actually see what ends up. You've got 120 days to train these horses, and these are not normal horses. These are what you want to call trick horses. We teach them to lay down. We teach them to sit. We teach them to follow us like dogs. I mean, it's amazing. I mean,
My plan is for this Mustang makeover, there are fence requirements. In the back of the barn, I've got 7 stalls. I'm going to open a stall up, and I'm going to put a chute, okay? Basically, and the fences are going to be whatever the requirement is. It may be 6 feet, it may be 8 feet.
I
I don't know.
mean, you have to double up your round pen.
I'm going to make a chute into a small containment paddock behind my barn where I can also make another chute into our round training pen. Now, that round training pen is gonna be at least 8 feet tall, and it's gonna be a round privacy fence. That's the only way we can safely do it.
Well, whatever fencing
Because
you're
they
looking
will
at
go
doing
through
going forward,
fences.
whatever fencing you're looking at doing forward, I'd highly suggest that you talk with the city planners
The
to
right
make sure you
people.
don't run into additional
Yeah,
issues.
don't talk to a secretary.
we're not here-
Well, from what I understand.
Wait, we're not here to
it's
discuss
behind
that
the
right now.
property.
We're here to discuss
Yeah,
this
from what I
125.
understand, it's because it's on a main road, and I don't really consider Hopewell a main road. Highway 9 is a main road.
There's still fence requirements, guidelines that you need to abide by regardless of it being the main road or not.
Yeah, no, I understand that. but,
Okay.
you know,
Are there
I shouldn't
additional
inform.
questions? Yes, well,
Just to make sure, I mean, we've owned horses, and my daughter and wife both have ridden for many years. What's your eye height of a normal horse?
My eye, I deal
Not
with
yours,
Irish-
but the horses.
As far as tall, I deal with Irish sport horses that range anywhere from 16.1 to 17.2.
Okay.
We just imported a German horse in.
Okay.
He's sitting about 17.3.
Okay.
He's 4 years
His
old.
eye height would be about.
I come sometimes, there were,
Yeah.
I come to.
17 times 4 inches per hand.
So,
And that's to the withers.
Yes.
That doesn't count the neck and the eyes.
Okay.
Eye height
Okay.
is here.
I
7, 8
understand
feet.
that.
and these guys are big.
Right.
You know,
So that's why I'm asking the question. I mean, there may be some need for a horse fence to be as high as you've got, but it's obviously not going to be enough to keep those kind of horses from seeing over the fence.
And we don't have,
And-
we
and I
don't have
just-
20 of
No, but
those,
it will stop them from going.
If a horse wants to go, as you know,
Oh, wait.
it'll go.
No.
It'll go.
You,
you know.
what other questions do you have?
That's
You
it.
take a fence that-
we've been in this business successfully since 1997. She's been doing it her whole life.
I understand.
A horse comes up to a solid object, it is not going anywhere unless you make it.
It will stop, and I've seen it happen, that's how
Okay.
that's how we've done it. If it's solid, they will stop and they will turn to go the other way. If they can see through, say, your floorboard fence and your wire, I've had them go through it, try to jump it, not exactly know how, because we do the jumpers.
Sure.
And I've seen them get really hurt,
What
getting
questions?
stuck in wire. So a lot of people will
Yeah,
argue
finished.
floorboard fencing and wire is the safest way. A lot of people argue floorboard is the safest. Board splinter, I've seen horses get the worst puncture wounds you've ever seen.
I'm sure.
I've seen wire get wrapped up. Our neighbor, I'll give you an example, he has one piece of barbed wire across from tree to tree. And that's why he's had to double fence it back, so my horses can't even get near that. So it's
I know.
just, we do a whole lot of just different stuff, and it all goes back, like I said, to safety. Just, and for me, safety, you know, it's not sitting right next to the road, it's not like you drive down the road and see the fence, you know? If we're allowed to finish the fence, stain it, put the gates up, plant the shrubbery, it'd be beautiful,
People
you
are
know?
concentrating on the road.
Well, that's true, but it would be, it'd be pleasant to look at, you
Samit,
know?
you have a question?
So I had a couple questions. So if it was determined to take down the fence, could you reuse the current fence?
No way I could reuse those boards.
Not the way the boards are, because you can't make
The vertical
them.
boards are 4x4s.
No, I think the question would pertain to you fencing in the rest of the perimeter of the subject property with privacy
I
fence.
cannot get the 4x4s out because they are secured with concrete without tearing them to pieces.
Okay.
There's no way I could reuse it.
Like, it's not just stuck in the ground,
Any
and
other
put there. I
question?
mean, it was cemented, it was done correctly, it was,
Another question I have is, do you know of any other horse farms in the city of Milton that have this type of fence on there?
I've got one 2 houses up from us. I've got one.
Lonnie's got the round pen like that with her babies.
Yeah, there's tons.
At least
On a
Wallace.
that's facing a main road, quote unquote.
Go up Hopewell. You see privacy fences all up Hopewell Road.
Yeah. You know,
I
and
do.
some of them are very ugly, some of them need to be torn down and redone, you know? And that's the thing, we live in a new house, we don't want it to look ugly, if anything, we want it to look pretty. You know, our customers, like I said, our customers were extremely happy when they saw this fence go up. Because they, you know, I mean, we're not talking $2,000 horses. I'm talking, we've had horses imported $80,000, $90,000, $120,000 at land. that are insured when they come out of New York, they want their horse secured. They don't want it just behind two gates that you shut at night and maybe, it's okay the next morning.
Are there any other
We
questions?
don't run a rinky-dink business. I run, safety comes first with the horses. Horses always come first, people come second. But that's just the thing. If we would have been allowed to finish this, you would have been complimented on how good it looked, It would have been stained. It would have had the shrubbery. The sign would have looked a lot better than it looks right now. It would have added to Milton. Horse country, which we're having horses all over the police cars. We have horses here, we have horses there. It would have added to the community, and that was just the thing that when he goes in and says, yes, you can build this, your Ag 1, comes home, puts it in order. I mean, unfortunately, yeah, the person told him wrong, but now here we are, and we're fighting to
Okay.
the end and getting punished for it.
We have no further questions, and I'm going to make a call for public comment, if you guys would take a seat.
Sure.
Um,
Appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time.
Yep. So I'm opening the floor for public comment. Any of those in favor or opposed? There is no public here for the record to make comment. You have a chance, I believe, to make a closing statement, and that would be it.
I have a chance to make a closing statement.
You certainly do.
Basically, my closing statement would be the letter that Angela read to you at the beginning. We built this fence with a few purposes in mind. First and foremost is horse safety. Quality of life for me and my family, which is important. Everybody wants to have a good quality of life. The city of Milton wants everybody to have a good quality of life. Mayor Lockwood told me this. It blocks the road noise. It keeps the public safe. If I'm allowed to finish my project, the public will be safer if a horse were to get out. It, like I said, when I turn my lights on, illuminates my entire front yard. The crime rate in Milton has gone up. We've had some home break-ins. We've had some home invasions. Dogs bark, turn the lights on, I can see everything. If I had a 4-board fence up, turn the lights on, I could probably see, 20, 30 feet. Now I can see my entire perimeter. So it doesn't take away from the spirit of the ruralness of the city whatsoever. The city, before we were Milton, before the Olympics, was a rural city. Now it's not. There's schools, there's subdivisions, there's apartments. We got roundabouts, freaking roundabouts. It's not rural anymore. And that's just the way it is. I've lived here all my life. My family has lived here since Alpharetta has been Alpharetta. My parents remember when Main Street was a dirt road. They still pulled horse-drawn carriages. My mother's family had one grocery store. My father's family had another grocery store. The only two in Alpharetta. There is nothing that would take away the current ruralness of the city with this fence. And once we pretty it up, it'll look even better.
And if I don't recall, didn't the mayor tell you that person that came out to see you?
Yeah, but they're not going to listen.
But I mean, that was,
That's hearsay to them.
hearsay. But
Yeah, I spoke to the mayor, I spoke to the city manager, met with him, and granted, the mayor said, I can't wave a magic wand and make all this go away. Would you be willing to go through the variance process? At first, I wasn't, because it was the city's screw-up. But after talking to him, and I like Mayor Lockwood, I really do. And after speaking with him, I said, you know what? I'll do it. I'll go through the variance process. But know this, if you guys make me tear this fence down, it is going to make the public less secure, because now I'm going to have to save money to rebuild this fence, or actually rebuild my other fence, because the money I have for the other fence, well, the money I have is earmarked for the cross fence of the northern pastures. And that has taken me over a year to save up for. So, like I said, I'm not a millionaire. I can't just write a check and have 3,000 feet of fence built by somebody. I have to earn this money. And in the horse business, in the true, honest horse business that we are,
It's tough.
there's not that much money.
It's tough.
So that would be all I have to say, unless Kelly
Yeah,
has something.
and like I said, it always goes back to safety. We want it to look good. We want everyone to be proud of it. Whatever, if y'all want shrubbery, we'll put shrubbery. We plan on doing it anyway. Staining it, it needs to be stained because the bottom looks, red clay. Like I said, it just goes back to safety. If we would have known from the beginning that we needed this, and this, guaranteed this man would have gone to the extreme to get what he needed. But it's just, it's more or less of a headache for us, for all of us, we just want it to look good. We want it to be safe. You drive down Hopewell, you see a nice, pretty fence. Like you said, you should be looking at the fence, but it's not like it's right on Hopewell. It's off of Hopewell, so it's not like it's right there. And again, goes back to safety. We've had people run through our fence. We've rescued 2 or 3 people from cars. It's in ditches, It's taken our first fence out. So if we didn't have
property taxes,
yeah, but if we wouldn't have had that second fence down there, our horses would have gotten out or possibly gotten hit by cars. So it's just, we're just trying to make this community even better and better. Is all we're doing.
Too late to ask a
And to make
question.
it look good.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, now I'm going to ask Angela.
Okay, thank you for your closing
very much.
statement. I'll now allow the board to address any questions to the staff. Yes.
Angela, just out of curiosity, if this 1 acre tract was part of the larger tract, if it was part of the 40 acre or 26 acre, would the restrictions be the same no matter what? In other words, if they came back and recombined this one out parcel to the other property, would that make any difference in how the city is reviewing this fence?
If this 1 acre was part of the surrounding 23 or whatever acres,
Right.
the type of fence that would be allowed along Hopewell Road would still be the same. The only difference would be that they would not require a fence permit.
Okay, and I noticed that you're not seeking fees for a fence permit as one of the recommendations, even though they should have gotten a fence permit. Okay? Any other questions for staff? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing and look to the floor for a motion.
Well, I'm kind of new, so I don't know how you do this, but I'll just speak my piece and then be quiet. But as an architect,
Are you making a motion?
I'll lead up to it, yeah. Or do
Okay, make a motion
Okay,
and then we'll have discussion.
I'll move we approve it with the conditions that we provide some shrubbery and that it actually be stained medium gray. I think to take a solid fence and make it the colors we'd use on a 4-board fence will create this mass that just won't look right.
All
I
right, so-
apologize, but I could pay over to you. Did you say
I'm
medium?
sorry, yeah, I'm learning the ropes here, yeah, I'm making a motion that the board approve it. I'm an architect by background, and I think that a medium gray would look better, cut down on the mass. Semi-transparent stain, medium gray color with some shrubbery in the front, and not necessarily a whole row of things to hide it, but just kind of break it up in some groups. And the reason, Should I tell you the reason yet, or see if anybody seconds?
We have to second it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, well, it
Well,
seconds it.
let me restate the motion, which
Okay.
is not as thorough as we would
Okay.
normally go through.
Okay.
As I've got it is, motion to approve, stain the fence medium gray, semi-transparent, and add shrubbery. That's what's being discussed, and it has been seconded.
Right, okay.
So open for discussion.
And the reason I want to recommend that is I've also spent over 45 years working in government and have done everything I can to improve it. And we all know all we have to do is go home and watch what's going on in the news every night and know how people feel about our government. I've had a lot of opportunity to blow things up and change things and make them better. And I have a real problem when a citizen comes in the door, the city hall, and asks a question that if that person doesn't know the answers, that they don't get the person to the right place. So we sit down and say, okay, Mr. Bates, let's take a look at this. Well, that 1 acre, that's carved out. So you do need a permit for that. And by the way, here are the regulations we need to have for this so that the city, the big city, helps constituents and citizens and taxpayers in any way we possibly can. And, you know, I had $1.5 billion in construction and design work under my jurisdiction in New York. And we had at least 200 field inspectors who were out there trying to get the work done in accordance with the plans and specs. And every once in a while, the field engineer would give some guidance to a contractor, and they'd go ahead and do it. Then the next level person would come by, much like our building inspector might, and say, that's not right. Well, we then never made the contractor change it on his dime because we messed up. We made the mistake. So in this case, I really would rather have seen a 4-board fence there consistent with what we're trying to do. I understand what we're trying to do. I don't disagree with that. Don't disagree with the guidelines we have. But the problem I have is the applicant came to the city and went away thinking, you know, he had the answer to the question and went ahead and built a fence. So that's the rationale for why I would recommend approval.
I have a couple points to discuss. One is I'm not comfortable with the vagueness of the motion. And I'll be specific.
I'm the rookie, see,
That's
so
okay.
I have to
That's
learn
okay.
how they structure these
One
things.
is saying shrubbery is fine, but we normally would specify that to the city architect's determination.
Agree.
Ladder, Iliagnus.
As an example.
Agree. The arborist, right.
The arborist.
Yep.
What did I say? City arborist. Also specifying color such as medium gray, there's usually a color palette that the city is dealing with in trying to make for uniformity purposes. And so I'm not certain that that's in the color palette that they're trying to achieve.
Well, could we recommend that the color be worked out with the city architect?
Sure.
Some consideration
Sure.
be made, say, well, the color palette presumes the fences will be in accordance with the regulations.
Sure.
And not an opaque privacy fence.
Now, more broadly, I hear and appreciate the point you're making of the applicant being told that they don't need a permit and walk away thinking that, you know, they can do what they want. However, I specifically asked the applicant about the house that they recently built, which went through the City of Milton process. So it's not like they're unfamiliar with the process. You can ask a question in such a way that you hear the answer you want to hear and you move on down the road. So I think any person would appreciate having a horse farm that there's guidelines in building fences, since they've built fences a lot on their property. You heard how many paddocks they've had and such. And I also heard tonight, in my opinion, an expression of safety that didn't hold the test to me when there's 1,500 foot of frontage and 1,200 foot of that frontage or more is going to be 4-board fencing. However, coincidentally, the 125 feet in front of their house is going to be a privacy fence. So rather, I think they would have been, better served to state what the purpose of that fence was, which is to protect from the road noise and the city has offered, their solutions for them to achieve that. So I don't feel that they've necessarily been fully honest with what they have looked to do with this property.
You can't make any
Public
comment
comments
now.
closed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, my motion was irrespective of any of the other considerations. What kind of horses, privacy, sound, anything.
Okay,
It's
and then
based strictly on the person came to City Hall. I think nobody disputes that.
right, and then, so then the final thing, probably the most important of all this, is as I read to start this meeting, primary variances have 4 conditions which they have to meet, and they have to meet all 4 of those conditions in order for us to have the responsibility to approve. And in this case, they have to prove that they are not offending the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And in this case, the spirit and intent of not having a privacy fence is along a major road is pretty clear. That there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the property, and there really aren't any extraordinary special conditions pertaining to the property. Relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good in surrounding properties. Well, if they're allowed to have this privacy fence here, who's to say that, they've got 1,500 foot of frontage and they don't want to have a privacy fence along the entire 15 foot of frontage? Or their neighbors don't down the road. And then lastly, that public safety, health, and welfare are secured and substantial justice is done. So, in my opinion, they may have achieved one of those requirements, but not all 4. Now, I'll leave it to the rest of the board for discussion. Yes, Walt?
I agree. I think there's a couple things that, if it was up to me, I'd change a little bit, Jim, to clarify. But, if we are going to approve this motion, I think what you're saying is exactly correct. If it was a solid fence, a solid color, a dark color, would just make it extremely oppressive. It's just, it would just be asking to be, it's just too much. So I kind of agree with the lighter the color, probably the better you are. And then secondly, on the landscape material, if that's the case, then getting that planted as soon as possible, if that was something that could be done, to make sure it's watered and taken care of, I think would help a lot. I think the difference in this case is that this fence is not on the road. Just about every other case we've had, the fence was right on the road. This one is back much further, and you have some fairly majestic trees there, and I think that's why they moved it back, to be honest. I think was to protect some of those trees and keep it back. And I believe, like Jim was saying, I think the city made a mistake, and I kind of hate to penalize the property owner. I think the spirit and the intent, I think in this case, there is an opaque fence right across the street from this property. Exactly right across the street, painted white. So as far as exceptions to the property, there's one right there. I know it may have been in existence before the city was created, and that's why it's there. I don't see anybody in the audience complaining about what's going on here today. Now, I do know, that this is not something we want you to continue. This is once you made the mistake, that's it. But the variance would be just for the existing fence, not for any future fence.
Correct.
And to allow the additional height, I can understand as well. I think it's something we also have to emphasize in this motion. But I think from the public health and safety, I can understand, having a little bit higher from that respect to help with the horses. I'm not an expert. My wife and daughter are on horses, so I defer to them. But I just kind of hate to have you tear it down. Out of all the cases I've ever heard, we normally ask people to take fences down like this. But this is a case where it's moved back. This is truly more of an agricultural issue that I can foresee that could make it a little bit more of an exception. And
they got direction from the city.
And they got direction from the city. So that kind of makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
I just think we've got to take that at face value. I mean, so.
Mr. Chairman?
So,
Yes.
There's one thing I want to address and make sure that it's clear to the board. The issue of what the city represented to the applicant, as I understand it, was whether or not a permit was required. That is not before the board this evening. The question is whether the fence that went up met the requirements, and I don't believe I heard any testimony that there was any representations made by the city with respect to those requirements. Just want to make sure that that distinction is clear. And I'm not sure that exactly what representation was made by the city based on the information that were provided, but make sure that those two issues are separate.
So the question was asked, do I need a permit? I'm on a working farm. The city responds allegedly, no, you don't need a permit, but that doesn't mean that you still don't need to live by the guidelines, is what I think council is trying to emphasize. Is that correct?
I want to make sure that those two issues are separate.
And why is that?
Because the variance, as I understood what was said, is the information, the question asked was whether or not a permit was required. As Mr. Chernick indicated, I also thought I heard the testimony is they provided the information that they're on a farm in an agricultural district with agricultural use. Do I need a permit? They were told no. That's actually not inconsistent with the advice. The facts presented may not be applicable to what is actually out there in that there's a separate property. That being said, all of that doesn't implicate what the variance is required for. Whether or not a permit was required, which was the question, they still would need this variance. And that is the question that is faced by this board, whether or not to give them the variance to the...
Irrespective of what was told.
Irrespective of whether a permit was required and irrespective of what they were told at the time.
And I understand your point completely, but I do also think there can be a certain connotation to a permit, meaning requirement, and that can get lost in translation.
And I,
Yes.
this decision is up to this board. I just want to make sure
Yes,
that is
and I think you're
distinction
absolutely
is
right.
clear.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. I mean, if you just look at it from the standpoint of the variance itself, then that's one issue, I guess. I mean, unfortunately, it's.
Is there any further discussion? I would like to see the motion restated to be more consistent and accurate.
And you can make a friendly amendment to the motion if you want.
Yeah.
You want me to try? You want me to try?
Yeah.
Okay. How about,
Do we need a motion to amend the?
Well, are you looking to amend, or would you ask Bill to withdraw and restate?
Well,
Restate.
either way works for me. If I hear what it is
Yeah.
that fits your normal way
Sure,
of
let's-
doing it, I'm fine with it.
Restate.
let's go ahead and withdraw it and
Well,
restate it.
Bill has to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I
You
can
withdraw
withdraw it
your
and
motion.
restate it with
Well,
your.
no, Bill
No,
has to
you
withdraw.
just
He will
withdraw,
restate.
then he will
And I'll
restate
restate it.
Yeah, I'm withdrawing
All
it.
right, then we have a motion to withdraw. Do we need to vote on that, council?
Yes.
No, it would be his withdrawal.
I'll just
with
So then Walt
second.
can.
Okay.
Okay.
Withdraw it.
So do we have a motion?
Yes. We would like to make a motion to approve V16-002 to allow an opaque stockade fence along Hopewell Road and to allow a fence to exceed the maximum height along Hopewell Road being 60 inches. With these conditions. The first one is the applicant shall plant evergreens to screen the fence along Hopewell Road. The fence shall be the planting shall be approved by the city arborist. The fence shall be stained a light color as approved by the city architect. The applicant shall obtain a fence permit for any further fences on the property.
Could I get clarification on your motion as to the approval, if there's any limitation on the length of the fence, opaque, stockade style,
Sure.
that's allowed?
The opaque fence is just the existing fence that's presently on the property. Again, the variance is for the existing fence on this property. That's along Hopewell Road.
Which is approximately 125 feet.
120 feet, I'm
Okay,
not sure.
existing
where's-
fence.
Existing.
So we have the motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
And we have a second. Any discussion?
Jim, did I get the context right? As far
Yep.
as what you're, okay.
Yes, sounds good, Mark. Thank you.
Besides the issues that I already raised, I'm not certain that we should be specifying color or even directing color as a board. I think our role is to determine the merits of the case, whether it should be approved or not. You know, my opinion on color is likely different than your opinion on color, and we have
colorblind.
professionals on staff that, you know, are looking at that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and as I understood Walt's motion, folds in the city architect to provide guidance and a dialogue.
Right,
on what
but
the
he
color-
also gave guidance to it being a light color.
A light color.
And that narrows the choices.
Okay.
And you know, as an example, the fence that's been mentioned across the street, it has been there since the city of Milton.
And it's
Prior
white.
to the city of Milton.
It's grandfathered in.
It's white. It's been completely disassembled except for the fence posts and completely rebuilt, which is the only way to maintain that as that type of fence.
That's
Because it
correct.
would be
Yeah.
then required to be a four-board fence. And that white turns to nasty green and moldy gray and black before you know it.
But once it's behind a bunch of shrubs, nobody will notice. So that's kind of why I was putting it a
So
stain of white.
I just don't think we
Light
should
color.
specify or
I
direct.
understand.
The only
staff.
reason I was reacting to color is that's my profession, and a dark brown, black-looking fence would look awful. I can tell you that.
If we wanted to take it down, that was gonna
I have a black fence.
It,
Privacy, it looks great.
a certain kind of fence in a certain location would be all right.
All right. So that's,
Not all black fences are bad.
I still have concerns with the variance conditions. So I'll leave it to the.
And I'm kind of with Jim. I believe he's right. I believe that the lighter color will be better. I think if you make it so dark, it's like that partition board back there in the back of the room. It's something that really makes it stand out, where if it was a lighter color, it would kind of blend in with the surrounding and not stick out as much.
Right.
So I think it's important.
And I got another question though, in regards to the last condition about, did you state, Walt, about obtaining a fence permit? Did you make that a condition?
Yes.
I did.
So, do you think we need to have anything else additional in that condition regarding the other fence? Like, does it need to be the same, or can it be different?
I think
Type of a fence?
I think they got to follow city code. If they do any other fence, they've got to follow city code.
And do you
They
think
know that.
I was going to ask if you.
No, it's closed, sorry.
So I don't think we have to state it, because the only thing we're addressing is this existing fence. And that's why the council has pretty much made sure we specify what fence is being allowed, so that it's not blanket throughout the whole property, that it's only for this location only.
Am I allowed to ask you anything?
No, the public comment's closed.
I just didn't know if we're allowed to finish this fence, I just didn't know, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be, my point would be in regards to the additional fence that would potentially come along, right, if they go ahead and get the permit.
Yeah, and they'll have
It's
to
gonna be-
paint it the right color. They'll have to do everything that they have to do.
So I think what Samit's expressing and what I'm sensing is this 125 feet may not be the finished product,
Correct.
which
Well, for this location, it is.
well, there's 250 feet of frontage in this subject property.
Right.
So 250 feet of frontage.
I
They've only put
understand that.
125 in, so we may be adding to the
They're gonna,
aesthetic challenges, harming the aesthetics and consistency.
well, they're gonna screen
Well, they have
it,
to
and I
get
know,
they have to get a fence permit if they're going to do
I know
any of
Mr. Law, he'll
Yes.
make it, and that's what
But
the
I understand
condition
the fence
says.
permit, but it's going to be now.
The fence
they get a
permit won't allow
permit-
them to do what they've done.
Right, the fence
That's
permit's not going to
correct.
make what they've already done, right? That would be potentially granted through a variance. And now if they got to get a fence permit, which they have to anyway, to build any type of fence, that meets the ordinance.
That's
That
right.
rest 125 feet is going to look a lot different for the fence.
It will, but they could also paddock off this area. They can do a couple different things where there's only certain horses that are getting into this area. So, in my view, it may not matter. And like they describe in that picture they've been sitting around, there's 9 different paddocks that they use. And really, the reason they do that, because when we would take our horses, you have different paddocks because you basically feed your horses at different locations because you need your crop to regenerate. And if you don't have any Bermuda grass there, you've got to let it sit for a little while, and hopefully it gets up. So that's why you do it, and your riding ring's another one. But
I have a question.
Now we're allowed to talk
I think what we're talking about is this current fence is 125 feet.
Right.
But they really wanted it to be longer.
We don't know.
There's 250 feet on this subject property, right, per the testimony.
But the
1,500
variance was,
feet.
this variance,
No, there's not, Walt. There's 250 of this subject property. That's all we're here to hear.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ken.
125 of it is opaque.
Finish your thought. Yeah.
but the Bates submitted this variance, only asking for this 125 feet, 6-foot tall fence, right?
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have to assume that's the only thing they wanted to look like this.
Well, if you read then this condition is really important, because if you read the variance request, it's for an opaque fence, stockade fence along an exterior street. It doesn't specify length, it doesn't say existing or not.
Correct.
But I hope I clarified that.
I think
You
Walt
did.
clarified that in the memo, and that was my intent too. It is what it is. It's 120, 25 feet. That's it. No more opaque privacy fence.
Right, but then, again, by the testimony, it seems like they're probably going to, quote-unquote, finish out the rest of the fence in this property. It's another 125 feet,
Right,
right? They've got to, of course, meet the ordinance.
right,
They're not going to be able to build this type of a fence.
right.
Are we okay with that?
And then, to my point, then now are we feeding into the exact thing we're trying to avoid, which is harming the aesthetic look and consistency by having a hodgepodge of fencing along the front of the property?
Right, because that other 125 feet may not need to have, there may not be a condition or, a city recommendation about shrubbery in front of it or whatever the
That's
case may
right.
be. So now you've got 125 feet, which meets the ordinance, and then you got this other, that,
Well, that's why we're asking to screen it. I mean, that's the purpose of screening it, is to make it opaque and to hide it. And so that's why we want to make it, and that's why we're specifying evergreen, so that it's completely screened. And I know Mr. Law well enough. He'll make them put in a good screen like he's done on many other projects. If that's something we're let him do. And the good thing is, the plants that they plant will not be in the city right away. That'll actually be on their property because they set the fence back far enough. And that's the beauty of whether they were doing it intentionally or not to move that fence back, but by doing so, that allows them some room to physically plant the plants and keep it on their property, not in the right of way. Most cases when we're looking at fence like this, it's right on the 1 foot behind the right of way. That's what typically the city requires, that at a minimum, it's 1 foot behind the right of way.
Could we look at page 11 real quick?
Sure.
The pictures. There is very mature trees on
Absolutely.
either side of this fence. Which,
It's on the street side is where that fence, that trees are. I know.
what I'm saying, they're on both sides. If you look at the top picture, they're on the back side, and if you look at the bottom picture, they're on the front side.
Sure.
Planting screening along there with that heavy root structure, we may be having unintended consequences there with these mature trees too.
Well, Walt recommended it be done in council with the city arborist. And arborist would make sure that there isn't competition. And my vision was there would be some groups here, some groups there, not where we have something that,
Like a row.
screening, well, it's a row, so many feet on center, but asymmetrical grouping of landscaping with the right color, look beautiful. I think any further fence can be done beautifully consistent with all of our regulations and our ordinances, and a good designer can meld them together and have it look beautiful.
I'm ready to vote.
Well, let me restate the motion so that we're all on the same page with what was stated. And that is a motion to approve V16-002, approving Part 1 and Part 2 to allow an opaque fence, stockade fence along an exterior street, to allow a fence to exceed the maximum height along an exterior street, with the following conditions.
I think I specified 60 inches.
That's 55 is the max.
Well, that's where they're asking for a variance to exceed the 55 to 60 inches.
They're at,
6
So
feet.
they're at 72. They're at 72.
They're at 72.
They're at 72, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, 72 inches, excuse me. Okay, so 72 inches.
Well, I don't know that we have to specify the height if you're saying this pertains to the
No.
existing fence.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So that's where I was going on. So the conditions are, the applicant shall plant evergreens to screen the fence from Hopewell Road. The planting should be approved by the city arborist. The fence shall be stained a light color as approved by the city architect. The applicant shall obtain a fence permit for any further fences on the property. And this variance request pertains to the existing fence on the property, which is approximately 125 feet in length. That's the motion which was seconded. With no further discussion, I'll seek a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. Motion passes 5-1. Congratulations. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, consideration of appeals. And sir and ma'am, you can get with Angela tomorrow to get any further questions clarified.
Yeah, Angela tomorrow? Yeah, we just need.
She may not be in right on time now because we keep her out late.
You'll be here tomorrow?
I've been called a liar twice since I've been to these meetings.
Old business? Is there any old business? Actually, we did have old business, which was to discuss the emails.
Tomorrow, find out about Jake's and all that, and do everything like that. But you're finishing. Everybody's done.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry, it's just us tonight.
No problem.
Um,
Angela, thank you so much for sending out that email and trying a couple different things, and I think that worked out great. I guess what I just hate to do is have you send us all these by package to have the city physically drop them off. I'd really rather, at least from my perspective, that's why I wanted to put it on the agenda, get everyone else's opinion, but somehow we've got to figure out how to get this email straightened out, and maybe we have to respond to you after you send it just to make sure that we did get it and are able to open it. And that was a great find of yours, finding about that, what's causing that windmill. So hopefully the staff could figure it out with IT.
I'll try that. I'll try the plain text tomorrow, and I sent another email to BC3 today, about the 3 that didn't get yours. So we'll keep working.
I suspect doing the plain text is going to strip the formatting, and
It will, and that's why I hadn't done it before.
yeah, I don't think that's going to be a good solution. Is anyone getting the emails with the attachments?
I am.
Yeah.
I am, but
You
not,
are.
but not anything that's labeled windmill. For whatever reason, I didn't get the agenda. It came in as a windmill, but I did get the other package, the report package. I got it as a PDF, not a PDF, a Word, which I then converted and sent to Kim as a PDF just to make sure she didn't have some problem with accessing Word. So,
Right, and I have a Mac, I can open, I can open usually anything, but that WinDAT.
Right.
whatever
Yeah, I
that
can't.
is,
I can't open that either.
I don't even know
able
what
to
it
open
is.
Anyway, I was able to open the package, yeah.
but what about the agenda? The agenda was like a
Agenda,
couple
I don't
days
know if that
ago.
was, but I can't remember what the format was for the package, but I was able to open that.
The PDF opens fine.
Yeah, and I can't open anything.
I don't know what a win is.
It's some kind of Outlook format.
Right.
It's
So, as I sent out to everyone, when Angela opened a ticket on this a while back,
Yeah.
someone from the city got a hold of, or from IT, not the city, from the IT, got a hold of me and was sending test emails with a test account. And I originally was getting the same behavior. I'm not sure what he did, but we were finally able to successfully send a Word document as well as a PDF document to me. And I confirmed that with him. I assumed that he was making changes to Angela's account or had resolved what the issue was. So I think the first order of business would probably be to get back with Devin and find out what, if anything, he's done. Because he may have the answer, and he just hasn't actually done it on your computer. A setting change or something, I don't know.
This is a new problem?
No, this problem's been going on now since the city made a change.
We went to the cloud, because we didn't have that problem before.
Oh, it's,
Now, the other thing is, I think you did a great thing also. You gave us that link that then took us to the city's website, which was also very good. I thought that was a real good idea of showing us that in your email, because that was pretty good. And I don't know, we may also have the agenda, which would be another link.
I didn't, you know,
Well,
So-
that's probably a good workaround for right now, you're right.
Yeah, so having that link may be a workaround till we get it worked out. But again, I appreciate what you're doing, everybody's trying to do to get it done, but 'cause I don't know what else.
So in the meantime, you could look at sending a link for the agenda, the minutes in our packet,
Yeah,
and then get with Devin, see what, if anything, he's found out.
why am I?
Is that his name?
I don't know, you like to
Yeah.
talk. There's no doubt about that.
I'm sorry.
And just so Angela has more complete information, can each of us reply to Angela and let her know if we're getting it or if we're not getting it?
Good idea.
What operating system we're using? Is it Windows? Is it Mac? And maybe that can help them troubleshoot. Does that work for everyone?
Good idea.
Sure.
Okay.
But if we're doing that, we've got to probably ask your IT person to tell us exactly what they want.
I don't think any of us are using anything weird. I mean, she
Yeah.
should be able to send out a document as an attachment. We should be able to open it, you know? I mean, not to,
I'm with you.
I'm not trying to disagree with you, Todd, but, you know, it's just,
So Jim uses a Mac,
I use a
Yeah,
Mac.
I can open anything.
and he gets it. I
Yeah.
use a Mac, I don't get it.
I
You
don't-
use a
I use a
Mac,
Mac
you
and I
don't
don't
get
get
it.
it.
She gets some of it.
I've got a Mac.
I use an iPhone.
You're on a Mac.
I have a Mac, but the Win won't open.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that
the
won't open.
whatever that, I'm like,
Whatever
I've
that
never seen any
mysterious thing is.
I
extension.
suspect,
outlet.
right, I suspect that Jim is on a Microsoft Exchange server.
Could be.
Kim, you and I probably are not. Bill, I'm not sure if you are on Microsoft Exchange server.
I'm not.
No, we're
you
not.
pay for
We're
it.
actually I'm on 365 now. So
Okay.
Outlook 365?
Microsoft 365.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that could also be a contributing factor. I'm certainly techie enough to be able to provide that information.
Sure, I can do that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll respond, sure.
All right, any other old business? So just to recap, in the meantime, Angela will send links out for each of the respective documents. We'll reply with what's going on our end. There is no new business since we removed election of officers to the upcoming meeting. I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Second.
adjourn.
I second it.
And it's been seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passed unanimous.
Excellent.